This is the Motion EasyGo Street, and it's actually my favorite EasyGo model because it's a little bit more comfortable. You get a suspension fork, albeit very basic. There's no lockout, no rebound adjustment, but you know, it adds a bit of cushion. You've got this nice, easy to mount step-through frame. It only comes in one size, and it's actually very compact. Just sort of the reach here. The seat tube's very low. It's only like 16.5 inches tall. I have all the geometry measurements back in the full write-up, but as you can see, I mean, it's just more approachable than the race model, which is a high step, a little bit bigger frame. I think it has like a 20-inch seat tube. So if you're someone who's a little bit more petite, or you just want a more upright riding position, you can see how these handlebars are sort of up and swept back. This is going to be a good option. It's definitely more comfortable, and it lets your head kind of be up and scanning for traffic, or just saying hey to your friends, or whatever, you know, cruising around the neighborhood. I love that it comes with a rack here, maximum 25 kilogram weight. It's got kind of these little lock points, so if you had bungee cords, you could kind of fit them into that and they wouldn't slop around while you're riding. They've even got kind of a pannier blocker, so your panniers won't rub on the tires and get into the spokes. Nice full-length fenders with mud flaps, front and rear. They do bounce around a little bit, and I could hear them rattling when I was riding, but this one right here, kind of hear that. But it does have these quick adjustment kind of finger tighteners on them, which is nice. And look, I mean, it keeps you clean, which is great. It's got a reflector at the back for safety, and I think it's like Galileo by Spinninga LED light in the front. You know, it's nice just as an added safety feature, but it's not wired in or anything, so that's the kind of thing you're going to have to keep an eye on. Remember to turn it off after your rides, and then potentially replace the batteries at some point. So I think one of the themes with the EasyGo line is that they're trying to be a lot more affordable. This is $1,699. So in my opinion, I mean, it's not the most affordable bike out there at $1,700, but you do get an Easy Motion, and you can see that it looks beautiful, right? It reminds me of some of the other bikes that they sell with these nice sort of accents. Comes in this kind of a glossy white with some red, and then black back here at the motor. It's a black motor casing, black spokes, black fenders. It just ties together really nicely. You even get like a Selle Royal, sort of a royal gel saddle, much more comfortable, getting back to some of those earlier points, and a black plastic chain guard. So you're getting some upgrades, and that's part of why you're paying a little bit more for this model. But you're also dealing with a little bit lower performance as far as electric bikes go. This is below average in like every way. The motor here is a 250 watt internally geared hub motor by Dapu. They tend to be more powerful than some of the other brands I've tried, or maybe that's just how they wire them up. Most of the Easy Motion bikes I've tested before are like 350 watts. So this is lower, but this is the standard in Europe. Okay, so you know, I think professional cyclists who are on long distance rides put out like 200, 220 watts. So that's like just their motion, their body. So you're basically doubling the power of a really fit person on a long distance ride with a 250 watt motor. But one of the sort of, I don't know, I guess in some ways it's a drawback, in some ways it's a benefit, is that you have a torque sensor here. So torque sensors tend to be really responsive. They require you to push because it's looking for strain and torque and pressure. It's not just listening like a cadence sensor for pedal movement. Okay, so one of the things about this model and all of the Easy Motion bikes that don't use the Bosch system is that you have to push a little bit harder. And I tend to have sensitive knees, so when I'm pedaling and stuff, I kind of prefer having a throttle. I like cadence sensors. Thankfully, this bike has a 6-speed drivetrain. Okay, so you can see it, 6-speed cassette back here. And so I tend to shift down to lower gears so that I can spin a little faster and I don't have to push so hard. That's something I couldn't do on the EasyGo Race because it's a single speed. So that's one of the reasons I like this bike a little bit better. The derailleur, it's a Tourney TX. That's just super, super entry level. It's like the lowest you can go in the Shimano component group, but that's still, you know, Shimano. They do a decent job, and sometimes the lower end stuff is a little bit more tough because they know it's on these cheaper bikes. SIS index shifter right here with the big sort of thumb button style. They're really separated. They tend to add a little bit of kind of noise, visual distraction up here, but otherwise it's a really clean cockpit, and these work really well in the cold if you're wearing gloves because they're so big versus little triggers down here. So that's fine. you know, it works all right. The grips, they're just very basic, no lockers or anything like that, but they look nice, not ergonomic or anything. The brakes on this bike are a bit of an upgrade over the race because they're V-brakes, and I think you tend to get a little bit more leverage with this style. In my opinion, they're easier to work with too. There's just, you know, you pull on them and they do their job. And the levers are a little bit oversized, so you can really, you know, bear down and get some great leverage. Got a little ball end, some plastic kind of texturized stuff there. They do have a motor inhibitor, which is nice because in my experience riding these bikes, the torque sensor that's supposed to be really responsive, it is smooth starting, but then it really doesn't stop very quickly. Like, I stop pedaling and it's still like, it just fades away. And I think they did that to be smooth so that you wouldn't have this like, you wouldn't have surge when you're pedaling. If torque sensors are too sensitive, you can get that. But again, the trade-off is that you could stop pedaling, the bike's still going. So be sure to just grab those brake levers and squeeze. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good look at some of the features. I like that the kickstand is adjustable here, adjustable length, and that it has a kickstand. The EasyGo Race does not. Love that the cables are all sort of, you know, run right through the frame. They stay out of the way, they keep it looking really clean. There's no quick release on the front or rear wheel. So, you know, maintenance could be a little bit more of a hassle, or if you're trying to throw this in the back of a car, you're gonna need a tool. Tires are very basic. I don't even know what brand they are. They might be Chow Yang. I saw that on some of their website marketing collateral. 26 by 1.75, so definitely a thicker, more comfortable tire than the really narrow race tires on the other EasyGo model, but maybe not quite as efficient. You know, just the body position isn't as aggressive, so you're definitely trading comfort here, and for me that's great. Again, the frame's a little small for me, so I think it's really geared towards, you know, those petite riders and maybe kind of like women, which is cool. Back here you can see there's a little torque arm that they've put on, so that's great. I don't know if you really need it for a 250 watt motor. I think this peaks out at like 420 or something like that. It's, you know, it's decent, but the top speed is like, I think you can hear the motor going all the way up to like 20. I can hear it kind of, but it really only gives you power up to like 15.5, 16 miles per hour. So that's another one of the question marks. That's kind of European spec. A lot of times electric bikes in the US will go to 20, sometimes even 28 if they're speed pedelec. So this is class 1, which is allowed in the most locations. Pretty quiet, but it is a geared motor, so you do get a little bit of a whir. Here is the battery pack. This is one of the highlights of this bike. You press down on that blue button, kind of slide it a little bit, and then you can even tell how full it is when it's off the bike by pressing a little battery indicator. There's 4 dots there. This one's at 100%. Relatively lightweight. You know, it's like 2.9 pounds. I was weighing it earlier. The capacity is fairly low, 36 volts, 5.8 amp hours, so a total of about 208 watt hours. An average size battery in the US is 350 watt hours, so you might be limited on range and again power and everything with this. It's just a lower power bike, but it's clean. You know, it looks nice. There's a little bit of you know, kind of rear heavy going on here. There's the rack, you got the motor there, you got the battery. The battery's a little bit high up, but it's only 3 pounds, you know, and that's cool. So if you wanted, you could get a second battery and take it along with you. I think regardless, you're probably always going to want to take this battery off when you park the bike because it doesn't lock. There's no way to really secure it to the frame. So you're gonna have to take that out, put it in your purse or your backpack or something. So to me, that's, again, it's like a pro, but kind of a con too. I'm not sure I want to take my battery with me everywhere, but then again, you could top it off. And since it's not very large, not very high capacity, that might be worth doing. The charger is about 1.5 pounds and it uses the Energy Bus standard, which is magnetic. It's very nice. It communicates electricity as well as signals, so they could potentially do firmware updates in the future. I really like that. And again, you know, just the way it's mounted, it's clean, stays out of the way, but the wire for the electricity it's sending goes right through the seat tube. So the seat tube really didn't come off. I was trying to pull up on it, and it's also not super long. I think it's like 160 millimeters. You know, just, you don't get a whole lot of vertical range with this, but for a lot of people, it's probably, they want it to be lower because they're a little bit shorter. And it actually felt all right for me. I was just squished kind of this way. And I'm about 5'9", so, you know, I'm kind of average size guy. I wanted to be able to extend my legs like the full way, and I could kind of do that. They just started to get a little bit close. to the handlebars and everything. So another one of the areas that they could potentially improve, in my opinion, is to put like maybe a bottle cage mount or something somewhere. That I don't really see where it would fit perfectly on this bike. So thankfully you have the rack. There are a lot of little, you know, kind of bags and things you can get on Amazon, panniers. You could put water back there, and that's another plus in my book over the EasyGo Race. So that's good. You know, I think we've gone over the whole bike pretty well. It weighs 43.8 pounds, which is still light in the world of electric bikes, especially given that you have a lot of those extras. They're just kind of cheaper, and these pedals exemplify that, right? It's plastic, it's not super big. They're VP, which is name brand, but they're just very basic. You can replace those with some Welgos. They have magnesium ones that are white. It would look sick. Okay. Oh, and check this out. This one, you can see the motor power cable runs, it's kind of tucked in a little bit more. When I looked at the EasyGo Race, it was coming in like on the outside of the axle, which isn't quite as clean. It's going to be easier to get bent if you tip the bike. And again, it didn't have a kickstand. So those are all reasons why this bike's nicer in my book. About $400 nicer? I don't know. You know, start to be a lot of options when you hit that close to $2,000 range. But the warranty is one thing that makes this bike stand out. You get 2 years by default. You can update that to 5 years if you just register it. And that doesn't include the battery. The battery is always just kind of limited and based on cycles and stuff, but still, that's sweet. And there are a lot of dealers where you can actually go and test ride this thing, and that's not the case for a lot of electric bikes. So how do we turn it on? How does this thing work? You just charge the battery, plug it into the slot like what we saw before, and then you can use this display, which is totally removable, just like the battery. Look at that, comes right off. There's even a little cloth satchel thing to put it in your pocket or your purse. Love that. Whoop, gotta just line it up all right. There we go. It clicks down. Looks like this one's even kind of swiveling a little bit, which is great to reduce glare. Okay, so we hold that middle button for a few seconds, and it comes up, and it gives us all this different readouts. So we've got speed, we've got assist level. Right now it's at 100%, but you can dial it back to 70, 50, 30, or 0. And at 0, this is just like a cycle computer, like how fast am I going, that kind of thing. But again, it's not integrated with the lights. One thing that you can do is turn on backlighting by holding down that minus sign right there. So I like that. It's a lot easier to read at night. You got battery level there with 5 dots, but they also have a percentage, which is much more accurate. So I like that they kind of include both. They packed a lot into this little area. And then when you press this center power button a few times, you can cycle through all these other readouts. So total distance, total time that this bike's been ridden, total top speed, like the top speed for like the lifespan of this bike. And then you go into trip. So this trip, how far have we gone? How long have we been riding? And what was our top speed? And then there's this other sort of like range. You can put in your own set range. So if you're trying to get a workout on this bike, maybe you can be like 20 miles and it will count down and let you know when you've made it. So it's kind of interesting. If you want to make adjustments with this display, you hold down the plus and minus for a couple seconds, and it actually brings up this cool menu where you pick the wheel size. So 26, that's correct. If we wanted, we could go plus or minus on any of these displays. And it gets into units. So we're in miles. I'm going to keep that because I'm in the US. Snow, that's talking about some of EasyMotion's other bikes that have 2 motors for riding in the snow. They have one called the Evo Snow. This bike clearly is not that style. It just has 1 motor. So I'm going to leave that off. And then amp hours. So this is the thing that I saw on the other bike too. It says it's 8.7 amp hours. That's wrong. So I'm actually going to dial that down to the 5.8. And I have no idea why that even matters, because there's no range approximation in here, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now we're all set. So I'm going to hold down the power button. It goes back to sort of being just a display. And we're ready to ride. I think it's time to hop on this thing, give it a go. It is a clean looking bike. It is beautiful. You know, and I appreciate a name brand company like EasyMotion, and really BH. This is made by a company that's started in Spain in like 1909. They've been around for 100 years. That's why they've got such a great warranty and why their bikes look so great. They're sort of like a bicycle first kind of a company. And again, this is just, I would call this one of their lower end electric bikes, or more minimal. So here we go. Kick that kickstand. I'm gonna dial it up to the highest level of pedal assist just so you can hear the motor kicking in. And I got myself up to about 20 miles per hour. I was pushing pretty actively. Like, it's definitely, you know, the torque sensor kind of a setup, but I'm also in a relatively low gear. I'm in like gear 4, so my cadence is a little bit faster. It's easier to generate that torque. And again, that's why I like this model a little bit more than the EasyGo Race, because I can interact with it without straining my knees. I picked a sort of a bumpy street back there to demonstrate the fender rattle. This is a smooth street. Much more pleasant, right? This is just kind of like a demo of what to expect depending on where you live. And again, fenders are notorious. Well, there we go. Kind of fun to take this thing out, get a taste for some of the more affordable electric bikes coming out. It's pretty stealth, you know, it's hard to even tell that this is an electric bike. The motor's quiet, everything's sort of hidden, but this bike has a lot of utility with the fenders, with the light, with the rack. So that is the Motion EasyGo Street. For the full write-up on this and other city-style electric bikes, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Ride safe.